So I like people. I like meeting new people. I love hearing different perspectives. So when people say, oh, networking, I kind of think pale, male, stale, soliciting business cards, men in suits. Like I'm like, hell no, I'd rather be at home. But when we kind of hear about it in terms of professional development, meeting new people, upskilling, and then there's also a line that you'd hear all the time about hearing and learning from or meeting up with like-minded individuals, people who think like you, but kind of think about it the opposite. I want to meet people who don't necessarily think like me and who have so many different kind of perspectives to bring to the table. And that's where, like, when you're at Hype and you're meeting people who aren't just in legal and accounting, there's also creatives like myself or people in recruitment, construction, education. We even have police coming along now. But when I get to talk to them and find out how they're kind of doing things in their business, and people who it's just completely different, and hearing those kind of varied perspectives.
Are you feeling lost in your career, or you want to have a greater impact but you don't know where to start? Welcome to Kinda Planned, the podcast where we help you unlock the opportunities that you can't plan for. Through engaging conversations with expert guests, we help you unlock the mindsets, strategies, and tools that you need to build the career of your dreams. So subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm your host, Alex Cutterford, and let's take a moment to unlock your next opportunity. Well, welcome back to another episode. Today I'm lucky enough to have Skye Harvey with me. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm really excited to jump in and chat with you. So Skye's the group brand manager at Mertek and the Hype president, which is Hunter Young Professionals. So thank you for making the time for me amongst your busy schedule.
No, thank you for having me. And I feel like every time someone says the president of Hunter Young Professionals, it sounds like a lot maybe fancier than what it really is.
And then we all assume that you're just underselling yourself. So maybe it's somewhere in the middle there.
Somewhere in the middle. It does sound also really not cool either, like Hunter Young Professionals. That's why we like to go by Hype these days.
So you're doing a bit of a rebrand. Are you trying to improve the perception of Hunter Young Professionals?
Absolutely. I mean, in the past 12 months, we've kind of refreshed our logo and things like that. We did a fresh website at the beginning of last year as well, just to kind of bring us more into the 2020s, I suppose. It hadn't really been touched in quite some time. So we just added some kind of bolder colors and shorten that logo. But yeah, we're still getting called Hunter Young Professionals, HIP, HYP. I'm like, it's Hype, guys. Come on.
So you're out there trying to hype everyone up.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that sounds like a pretty good job to me. Really keen to hear your career journey and jump into a great conversation today. Mm-hmm. So do you maybe just want to share with the listeners a bit about yourself and your career journey?
Yeah, I would love to. Newcastle born and bred. I started studying at the University of Newcastle in 2017 all the way through to graduation in 2019, and then straight away I commenced my first full-time role at Mertek, where I still am today. I started in a fairly junior position as the marketing coordinator, and since then have just worked my way up through getting more and more involved in all kind of facets of the business as opposed to just the marketing, which is something that I've really loved. And then in terms of Hype, how I came about getting involved in that was through being at Mertek and being encouraged to get out and go do some professional development as such. And somebody said to me, hey, you should go along to a Hype event. And so I bought my ticket to go to a launch event, and I was all on my own. I was so scared when I got there. It honestly just looked like a big group of friends as opposed to what I imagined a networking event to be. So I beelined straight to the bathrooms. I was like, I don't want to be here. I want to go home. But work had bought my ticket, and I knew that they would ask me the next day how it went. So I pulled myself together and I was like, let me go to the bar and grab a drink. And when I was there, I met Danielle O'Neill, who was the vice president of hype at the time, and she was like, hey, let me introduce you to some people. It's your first event, yeah? And I was like, yeah, it is. And then the people that I got introduced to and sat with that night have ended up being some of my very best friends. And so that's how I became involved in hype.
That's so awesome. Just like it's like the full transformation story of, walking in feeling completely overwhelmed, not knowing anyone, to this having these great relationships, and now
Yeah.
the overrated position of president.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been really fun, and then even going from being a member to being on the board and the friends that I've made along the way, and I guess the work that we're doing in challenging Hype being kind of a networking group to becoming more known as professional development, and where you want to send your young guns along and why you should be encouraging them to go along, as opposed to it's just people trying to solicit business or just trying to get their name out there. It's more relationship driven.
Yeah, nice. What's that journey look like for you, like transitioning from just, being a member that attended to sort of moving into onto the board and stuff?
I feel like people are kind of sick of me telling this story, but essentially, after I went to that launch event where I met Danielle, I encouraged one of my really good friends from uni, Ellie Bright, to come to an event with me. And I was like, I don't want to go alone to the next one, but I met some cool people. Will you come? And then she went along. We went to comedy night. She absolutely loved it. And then there weren't many other events that year. Like I said, it was 2020. So it was kind of all shut off from there. But then the following January, she said, hey, I'm going to join the board. Will you come to the AGM and vote for me? And I said, of course I will, Ellie. And I went to the AGM to support her, and they ended up not having enough people applying for the board, and they said, is anyone here a member and willing to stand up? And I essentially stood up and I told the story that I just told you about meeting Danielle and being so nervous, but how it was a really friendly environment. And from there, I was elected on. So I did 1 year as a non-executive director, and then I wanted to stay on, so I joined the executive team the following year, and then for the past 2 years, I've been the president.
Yeah, nice. No, that's really cool. Dan, the late call up. That's definitely a unique way to go about it.
It is, and I have so much to thank Ellie for, I think, because if it wasn't for going along to support her, I don't know that I would have attended the AGM just for fun at 7 o'clock on a Monday morning or whatever it was. But it truly has, and anybody who would be considering not just joining the Hype board, but any board, it has seriously opened up so many doors for me, and then building not just skills and confidence, but also being more comfortable in myself and in my skills. I just couldn't recommend it highly enough. It's such a good way. People talk about making friends as an adult, and there's so many different ways you can do it, but volunteering would have to be one of the best ways that I can think of.
Yeah, and because has that event run yet? You guys have an event coming up, don't you? That's looking at the power of volunteering for your career.
Yes, absolutely a plug here. I don't know when this is going to go live, but it's this Thursday evening with the NGM group, and it's about how volunteering fuels professional growth. So we have a panel of, there's two people from NGM group coming along to speak about the charitable foundations and things that they have, but we also have Luke Connors from Talk to Me Bro. They're our charity partner for the past 2 years. He'll be talking about the work that they do and how that they have become from a charity that operates outside of work hours, but how they've become really integrated with the Newcastle business community, as well as a representative from Dress for Success, who was our charity partner before Talk to Me Bro, talking about all of the incredible work that they do as well. So I'm excited to hear what they have to say.
Yeah, no, that will be good. It this will be releasing after that, but it's still good for people to know the types of events
Yeah,
that come on, and just yeah. And I do think it's definitely for me, like volunteering was a really big part of my career starting out, because so my story goes that I was working as a cabinet maker, but then I started getting into a bit of youth work on the side, just on a volunteer basis. And then because I was wanting to try and get off the tools, and so I sort of started to look into getting into a bit more youth work and stuff, and was able to transition from volunteering into some paid roles in youth work, and that all sort
How
of
cool is
set me
that?
on a whole different trajectory. So, yeah, absolutely, volunteering can be a really good way to open doors that then become a professional avenue.
Yeah, I love stories like that. We just recently had someone approach me at a hype event who they had been working in a role that they kind of thought that they were going to start at the bottom and have more doors open up to them, and that kind of didn't happen. And then through coming along to hype and as one of Hype's major partners being NGM Group, they kind of saw those roles going up on Seek and applied for those and ended up being really successful in getting the role that they wanted because they said, "Oh, I'm a member of Hype. I get along to your events and blah blah." And that kind of is how they got their role. And then they got to come to a Hype event and tell those NGM reps, "Hey, I'm starting at your organization." They were so excited, and it was honestly so exciting for her because I just loved that her role that she was currently in wasn't really supporting that professional development, career growth. And she was like, "I'm going to buy my own tickets and I'm going to do my own thing." And look at her now.
Mm. Now, when we were chatting, it was funny, and I was saying I'd be keen to chat with you about the power of networking. You're like, well, interesting enough, I know I'm the president of Hype, but I actually don't like networking that much. So, what is it that you're really passionate about and driven?
So I like people. Um, I like meeting new people. I love hearing different perspectives. So when people say, "Oh, networking," I kind of think pale, mail, sales, soliciting business cards, men in suits. Like I'm like, hell no, I'd rather be at home. But when we kind of hear about it in terms of professional development, meeting new people, upskilling, and then there's also a line that you'd hear all the time about hearing and learning from or meeting up with like-minded individuals, people who think like you, but I kind of think about it the opposite. I want to meet people who don't necessarily think like me and who have so many different kind of perspectives to bring to the table, and that's where like when you're at Hype and you're meeting people who aren't just in legal and accounting, there's also creatives like myself or people in recruitment, construction, education. We even have police coming along now. But when I get to talk to them and find out how they're kind of doing things in their business and people who they just it's just completely different and hearing those kind of varied perspectives, that's kind of usually why I'm in bed by 7 p.m. kind of person, but that's why I'm kind of being drawn out of the event when it closes at 10 because you're just busy just talking to people that you wouldn't otherwise kind of
Mm.
interact with day to day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's so much power in connecting with people that do think differently, and maybe it's trying to find that right balance, right, of people that are sort of share, close enough values that you can sort of connect and people feel safe and comfortable, but then also people that can really challenge you and sort of make you think a bit differently about things that maybe you're thinking are sort of hard and fast, the right way, and someone all of a sudden has a whole different angle on it.
Yeah, 100% spot on, and it's the values alignment. I think as long as you are curious about learning about other people, so you're not just there to talk about yourself, you're there to learn about others. And then, yeah, you share those common values as well of just being a good person. I think that that's all that matters.
Yeah, I often say to people that feel really nervous about going to networking events, and I will often say, like, the benefit is you don't have to go there and promote yourself and brag about yourself. Like, you can just go with curious questions and learn about other people's perspectives, and that, a good question is worth, more than a thousand brags. Like when you ask people good questions, that normally reveals, things about yourself anyway, and helps people connect with you.
Yeah, and you know what? People's favorite thing to talk about is themselves. So if you just keep asking them questions, then you've got something to talk about all night. 'Cause people, while you're grilling them, maybe not in such an aggressive way, but just genuinely trying to learn more about their business, they're usually pretty happy to talk to you.
Yeah. Um, so going back to your work, so you work in communications and marketing. What made you want to get into that field?
So I've always been a fairly creative kind of person, but I definitely grew up in the era of the YouTube vlogger and watching things like that. And a lot of those early days Australian kind of influencers had studied communications or marketing. So that's what kind of drew me to that. And then also I did some study overseas, and I knew that courses like that existed for the degree that I was in. So I was really drawn into that. But in terms of how I ended up in IT, that was not the plan. That was just me graduating from uni and applying for a whole bunch of different roles, looking at what would stick. But what I would say to that is, and this is advice that I've given to so many people, even in hype, when they're finishing up uni, is just apply for everything, because you'll pick up new skills at every interview that you go with. You'll learn new things, but IT is not a skill set of mine. It has made my brain explode kind of daily and all the new things that I'm kind of learning. But that's actually what I do love about it, is being challenged and learning so much. And I'm also really grateful to have spent so much time in-house as opposed to agency side of marketing, because that is what has taught me so much about the business side of things, HR, finance, all of those kind of little things that I would not have learnt if I was just doing agency side.
Yeah, communicate. My wife did a communications degree, and it was actually through her doing that course that got me really passionate about it. And it does really flow through, in particular, like organizational communications. Yeah, you very quickly are looking at the whole business and understanding how it works, and then how communication, influences the whole business, and is so important. Such an important cog of any business is having that, good, strong, clear communication.
You're so right. And then, so in my role day to day is breaking down kind of complex technical concepts, and removing any kind of tech jargon and making it so that our customers really understand like what we're talking about, and making that as clear as possible. So whether that is to actually our existing customers as well as to the business community, so our prospects as well, but just making that crystal clear. And so in my case, not being a technical person with an IT background is actually a huge strength, because if I already knew what they were talking about, how can I make it appear to the average person in layman's terms the way that I can now? I just couldn't, because once you're so far into it, you just kind of lose sight of what people do and don't know.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And on the in-house bit, you were mentioning that also one of the things that you do is run a bit of a small group with a group of friends that are all in-house marketers. Is it marketing girls? Is that right?
Yep, nearly marketing gals.
Yeah. And so, tell us more about that group, and the importance of it, and why maybe it's different from like a bigger hype sort of.
Yeah, perfect. So Um, I started this group with a friend who was in a similar role to mine. She was working in recruitment and she was in-house as well. And I guess when you're in-house, a lot of the challenges that you're kind of dealing with are sales team learning where's the leads, and then you've got finance going, hey, you're spending all this money and what's the ROI? And there's kind of all of these challenges, especially when you are quite junior and stuff as well in your career. Like, I am really only 5 years into my career in the scheme of things. And so we were just venting about all of these issues and talking about, well, who do you outsource? Who do you do that? And we do find, and I don't mean to shade on agencies because there are several really incredible ones in Newcastle, but we're finding that they try to cross promote. So we'll do your SEO, we'll do your digital ads, and we just find that they can't be the best at absolutely everything, jack of all trades, master of none. So like, we really need to create a space where it's like, who do you use for this, and who's genuinely good, and what challenges are you having, and who's helping you overcome those. So we're like, let's go for dinner. We'll both invite a few of the people that we know that are just in-house marketing girls. Open to guys too, but just no one's kind of interested. We might need to rebrand for that to happen. Um, but we had the first dinner and there was four of us, and then I think the second one had eight, and then the third one had 12, and then we kind of capped it off from there, because we were like, the bigger that it gets, the kind of the quality of like the group conversation kind of fades out. You know what it's like when you go to a dinner with a bunch of friends, you don't get to talk to the people down the other end of the table, but we just meet up once a month at a different restaurant, just depending what specials are on, keep it pretty casual, but we just chat through what troubles are we having. And then we also have a LinkedIn kind of group chat where people are like, help, I need this by this date, who knows somebody, and it's been so much fun.
Yeah, awesome. And what's an example of when you've been able to support someone?
Yeah. The best example I can think of is we had one of the girls who, I'll de-identify her, but she was kind of she was doing a really good job in her role. She still is, and she had she could say that she had all of these results that she was achieving, but she just said, my pay, I just know that I'm so junior and it's just not where it should be. I deserve more than this. And we were like, girl, it's the data. You need to show the data. It can't just be, oh yeah, look how many new Facebook followers we're getting, or look how many people liked our Instagram posts. Like, where is your data? You need to be tracking that. So we kind of guided her through the process of what analytics she needs to be looking at, and put together a bit of a report where she could say, go to her manager and say, hey, these are the results that I'm getting. This is my worth, this is what I'm contributing to the company, this is what I think that we need to renegotiate my pay and my title and those kind of things. And when she came to the next catch up, she had done that. She had very exciting news about her promotion, so that was a huge win.
Yeah, that's so good. Just highlights the power of not just community, but community of people that are really invested in, supporting you and understand where you're at and the challenges you're facing, and being able
Yeah,
to get behind you.
100%. And I was probably her only probably only 2 years ago, but where I've been super fortunate in my career is that, like I said, being that I am non-technical and that's a strength to our organization, and that we're in IT too, which is mostly pretty male dominated, so being a female is also a huge strength. So that's where the director of Mertek here was like, I think that we could help you do some professional development by getting you an external marketing mentor. And that's where I've been able to work with an external consultant, just a couple hours a week that we outsource, but I get help with strategy, measuring, and then putting forward new ideas. But it has been so great. And then from a company perspective, well, they could have put on a marketing manager who would have cost a lot more than what my salary would have been, and they wouldn't have been as involved in the business because they don't have the 5 years of knowledge that I have, and they don't have the relationships with the customers that I do. So just having an external consultant who can help mentor me, bring me up to speed, that's been super invaluable as well.
Yeah,
I'm so
that's
fortunate for
that's
that. I feel
amazing.
like when I mentioned that, even at marketing girls, I'm like, oh, you need one of these in your life. They're like, how did you get that across the line? And I was just fortunate enough that that idea was presented to me, and I absolutely snatched it when I could.
Yeah, I can just picture like every other person working in marketing being so jealous of you right now.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
It's pretty good. It just means you also have an expert. So, I mean, everybody thinks that they're an expert in marketing because they've read a blog about something once and they just like, I know what that is. But to have like an expert that you can say, hey, well, they said this, we're measuring this, and just to lean back on is super helpful.
And whilst they say lots of people would be jealous, also it takes someone though with a real openness to learn and to have a real growth mindset that really capitalizes on that sort of opportunity. So I'm sure there is plenty to do with your mindset that's made that such a positive thing. Other people might, feel sort of insecure about saying, "No, I don't need someone that telling what to do. I know what to do." You've
No, I
taken it
want
with a real
someone to
positive
tell
mindset.
me what to do. Um, no, but I think with any kind of creative role, the thing is that it's constantly changing. So one of the examples that I'll use because it's relevant to right now, but in advertising, they let's just use Meta ads as an example. They change how those things work day by day, right? And then so that's why there are agencies that are charging like insane fees to run your Meta ads account, because you have to be in there day by day on top of those things. And if I'm managing our whole marketing, which is made up of a marketing mix of about five kind of key lead gen kind of avenues or channels, there's no way that I can keep my finger on the pulse on every single one of those changes every day, because I'm also running events, managing the website, going out and meeting with customers constantly. Like there's just so much. So having an external person who their job is to focus on those kind of things and keep their finger on the pulse and then communicate that to you, that's just a weight off my shoulders.
Yeah, absolutely. So thinking about young professionals early in their career, what are some of the challenges that a young professional might commonly face?
Absolutely, I think that they're struggling with their confidence and knowing their worth. And the way that I see it is that being young is a strength. In so many ways, it doesn't just have to be about our agility with technology, but just fresh ideas, creativeness, access, resources, so many things. Um, but I think that especially here in Newcastle, when they say it's not who you know, but it's what you know, it's who knows you. So it is just building those relationships. So the challenge is knowing who to talk to and when, who to seek a mentorship from, who to get advice from, but just knowing how to build those relationships, not in such a transactional way, like here's my business card, but how can you develop your soft skills in a way that people will know that when they need something, that you're the person to go to, and have the confidence to know that, hey, that should be me.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and what can businesses do? Like, what can a business do that if you've got a young person that's maybe just started working for you, how can they best set that young person up for success?
Well, you've done me here, because I don't want to just say send them along to Hype, because
It's
that doesn't feel that doesn't feel good.
okay.
Um,
I'll say that. You say something else.
But I think from a leadership perspective, you need to be having at least at a minimum fortnightly one-to-ones with them and checking in what challenges are getting in your way at the moment and how can we put together a plan to help you overcome those. I think that that is so, so important. That's what we do here. Also, the professional development side, getting them to go and do things. I had a really good conversation with the director of one of a really big law firm in Newcastle, and she was talking about networking, and she said, I want to go with them because I'm interested, but I also want them to kind of thrive on their own as well. So how can we create events where it's like, hey, this one is for us to attend together, and then from there you're on your own, and I trust that you're not going to waste that opportunity to go and just talk to your co-workers, sit in the bar with them, but how are you going to go and meet other people? So creating spaces like that, that's one of the things that we're working towards at Hype. I would also say find your people. So whether it is the Marketing Girls Dinner, there's so many fantastic industry associations around as well, like accounting, legal, that there's something for everybody in all of those groups. So really find your niche and find your people, and that might mean going to 10 different events to find what one is really your kind of tribe.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Skye, how can people find out about what's happening with Hype and get in touch and follow along?
Hype is super easy. You can just head to our website and sign up to be a member. It's completely free, but that'll put you on our mailing list so that every week you're kind of receiving the notifications about our upcoming event, as well as those community events that we're doing that are free, and they're even less networky than a traditional Hype event. We've been doing things with local gym called One Tribe, doing Saturday training sessions and things there. So that's probably the best way to find out about Hype, as well as just keep up with our socials as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your journey and some really great insights. And yeah, looking forward to seeing what Hype keeps doing.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful chatting with you.
Thanks for tuning in to Kinda Planned. Subscribe and send this episode to a friend that you think needs to hear it. Or head to my website, www.kindaplan.com.au for free resources. Or follow me on LinkedIn and socials so that we can keep the conversation going. Now go unlock your next opportunity.